One, and we are live. We are live. A bit at a different time. Sorry to everybody, but we are up and running. We have had, it's through fire, through force, people, rain, sleet, or snow. You may not tell, Vernon. You may not tell. I'm actually sitting in no electricity at the moment, because Cisco decided that we're not allowed power in the morning.
Hmm.
Ah, this is there's one thing I
Anyway,
don't. Yeah,
I think at about a day or two, which literally experienced the same, where you leave power at home and you return, you find there is no power. And then you have those days where you're home early sometimes and up until somewhere 6, 7 p.m. And after power is restored, it actually still cuts for about 10, 15 minutes again. And in Kawata, this has been the scenario for some time now. I don't know what the arrangement is. This past week has been a blackout in Kawata Extension, Padia side, Kawata site and service.
it's look unfortunate, and I'm gonna have this conversation out with people before I get started because I know everyone loves to talk about this issue of socialism versus capitalism. I always tell people I've seen people like complaining like no. This capitalism doesn't work, especially like college educated students. College educated students love showing how much they've read about. So they love showing their intellect. But in
Mhm.
reality, I think what they don't understand is that there's a strong impracticality with socialism. It's very simple. If you have read a book called Lord of the Flies, we read that in high school, and it was about kids being marooned on an island, children. And within those children, already you started to see corruption, you started to see violence. Leaders emerged who then abused their power. And they were trying to show that innate just in
Mm.
human nature, there's already hierarchies and dominance and people's ability to abuse power. I always say this, and I've had this conversation with a friend of mine who said, what this world needs is a council. It's a council of elders who can allocate resources because capital. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? You're talking about a council of elders. You can't even trust the people down the streets to manage things. People, human beings are greedy by nature. Okay, this is what you need to
Mhm.
recognize.
Yeah.
Don't give them the power to express that greed with public resources. That is the reason why I believe practice socialism yourself. Okay, if you believe in socialism so much, take your paycheck and support people with it. That's what you do. No.
Yeah.
This is what I don't understand. Everybody loves talking about socialism, but when you go to them at a personal level, do you practice socialism yourself? Okay.
Yourself.
Or are you looking out for yourself only? Do you take your resources before you start asking mining companies and big banks and everyone? Do you take care of your people? Or do you want them to take care of your people? Because what I've noticed about socialism at a national level is that it promotes greed and individualism at an individual level. So what happens is that everyone starts being, I'm on my own, the government has to take care of us as a collective. That's the way people start becoming. Now, like I said, they are human beings are naturally greed seeking. They're
Yeah.
naturally profit
Hmm.
seeking. This is your natural inclination as a person. Okay, when you are given authority, you will naturally abuse it. When you're given access to cash, you'll naturally spend it. This is who you are. Okay, that is the nature of man. So my problem when it comes to socialist systems is that it makes this inherent flaw in assuming the leaders of the socialist system are going to be moral people. Okay, it makes that inherent flaw. And every single time a collective socialist system operates, it is run by authoritarians who give themselves a wonderful life and make the people suffer. That is what always happens. Okay, it always ends up that way. Now, is capitalism a perfect system? No, but it just gives less abilities to harm the people's lives than socialism. Yeah, let me give it to you this simple. I always say, look, people, we need a much more efficient electricity system, and the private sector may have to. Oh no, but the prices will go up. Has that stopped under the government-run system? Has the prices going up stopped under the government-run system? No. Okay. You've got a choice to. By the way, I remember Thomas Sowell, the economist, being spoken to about this. He was being spoken to about hospitals. He said U.S. healthcare versus British healthcare. The U.S. healthcare system is private and it's expensive. British healthcare system is government run by the NHS and it's cheap. Okay. So you're saying, what's the difference? He says, no. You see, when you're going to a hospital, you pay two ways. You either pay cash or you pay in waiting time. That's the difference. When it comes to a hospital, you either pay cash or you pay in time, meaning you'll be sitting in a queue waiting for everyone for your turn. What's happening with our national health insurance right now? When you go to the hospitals where they're being served, where you find Nima, you're finding queues. That's the reality. You're starting to find queues. Why? Because you either pay cash or you pay in time. So which one are you willing to sacrifice? Okay. So that's what I think we all need to start recognizing. I think with this whole socialist capitalist debate, I'll say it this way. I think as a Christian, it is your duty to serve society, even through your work, through your business, and with your wealth, to find a way to build wealth to eventually be charitable. That is the point. Build wealth and eventually become charitable, because that is the goodness of life. Do that. That is actually promoted. That is, in fact, one of the most primary reasons to build wealth, so that anything you find socially painful, you can go out there and make a difference on it. If you see people not eating, or you see a school needing to be built somewhere, guess what? When you have money, you don't have to campaign and ask a politician and vote. You just pull your money out of your account and do it. Okay, that's the difference. When you got money, you can actually do the things that matter to you. So if something truly matters to you, go out there, get rich, and go and do the things that matter to you. Okay, go and make the impact that matters to you. But trying to get a system to install politicians who are human, who are money seeking, to sit in there and pray that they're going to be moral people, and then keep replacing them, not seeing that the position is corrupt, not the people. When you give a person access to power, they become corrupt. That's the thing. Okay.
That's what happens, actually.
We're not expecting capitalism to be a perfect system that's going to breed moral results and help pull people out. People are going to be pulled out of poverty by removing the debris that's in the way and giving them the skills and the tools to be able to pull themselves out of poverty. Pulling people out of poverty is not a possible task. A government does not pull people out of poverty. At best, what a government does is they lower a bed, a blanket, and a pillow into your poverty to make it comfortable. That's what they do. The government can only make poverty slightly tolerable and comfortable, but they cannot alleviate it. They will not alleviate it, because it's a cash cow as well. Okay, the poorer a country is, the more it can beg. The poorer a country is, the more it can ask for concessional financing. The poorer a country is, the more it can demand big projects that people can steal off. That's how this works. Okay. So the exit out of poverty is not going to come from a centralized system. It's going to come from personal responsibility, personal effort, which is something that is finally being done at church levels. It's being done at family levels. It's being done through friend circles. It's good to see that Zambians are starting to take responsibility for alleviating their personal poverty. Because I'm going to share with you a simple line that was said by Steve Harvey. And at this point, Steve Harvey was having a conversation Steve Harvey was having a conversation at I think it was called Earn Your Leisure group. And they were talking about trying to help the cause and trying to get tied up with trying to help people and everything. And Steve Harvey said a very simple line, which I'm going to try and avoid saying before I load it up. But he said a very simple line about how to handle poverty and what the best thing that we can do for poverty as a group. Take a listen to this.
He said, son, best thing you can do for poor people is not be one of them. You know why? Because you can't help the cause. My daddy used to tell me all the time, he said, son, best thing you can do for poor people is not be one of them. You know why? Because you can't help the cause.
Very simple. Straight to the point. Straight to the point, Vernon. Best thing you can do for the poor is not join them. That's what I mean. I'm not talking about isolate them, mistreat them. Best thing you can do for poverty is not join it. Is to get out of it, decrease the numbers by getting yourself out of it. Now, don't get yourself out of it at the expense of another. Don't cut another's wrist so that you can get out of it. I'm saying get out of it the honest and hardworking way. Figure out your thing, work extremely hard for it, build something, like go work at it viciously, okay? And then eventually get yourself out of it, get your family out of it, change your family tree. Once you can do that, there's a whole generation of people. See, once you get yourself out of poverty, if you're good enough at leading your family, you've gotten a whole generation of people out. You've gotten this whole lineage that comes out of you. Okay, your children, your grandchildren. If you can pass that on, you actually end poverty for a group of people. So if a lot of people can take responsibility for their own poverty, also build businesses that create, also solve problems and build businesses, that's a big way to solve this. That's an early rant, Vernon. It's not usually that I let off one like that, but let's get into today's conversation on Behind the Markets on Enterprise Thursday about getting started simple. We did see that the kwacha did move up. The dollar did move up significantly by 0.35%. It's back up in the positive over in the year-to-date period. Stock market was quiet yesterday, while the bond market trundled along its similar pace as usual. We did see that the rand also lost a bit of value yesterday, 0.9797. So the rand is still teetering below. This is good for cross-border traders, as I said, and also good for those who are buying goods from cross-border traders. So the opportunity, South Africa is the place to import, and it's going to keep driving up the importer. As we pointed out here, we did see that commodity prices have shifted down by 1.54. Because of sticky inflation and fear that the Federal Reserve is going to hammer interest rates, we did see a 1% decline in oil and a 1.5% decline in copper, and also gold is coming in a little bit lower, but still above 2,000. So we are seeing that there's a potential for more room for the price of oil to start coming down. We also did see that in our wealth insurance assets, Bitcoin was down 1% on the fear of Fed rate hikes, and also Ethereum down 1%, but gold up 0.03%, and in dollars, gold is up 12.5%. And giving us a roundup of where our assets are sitting, bonds up 10%, 3.9% above inflation year to date. Stocks up 11.1% above year to date. And gold is up 12.5%. So we're still in a slightly defensive position when it comes to the asset markets altogether. Now, in terms of what we're seeing in terms of our four horsemen, we have seen that Egyptian inflation spent 10 months rising, but it finally started to come down. And we're starting to see the first month of decline in the inflation rate. Egyptian inflation got up to 33%. It now dropped to 30%. German inflation drops to the lowest in 13%, and Rwandan inflation declines to a 6-month low. But unfortunately, U.S. core inflation seems sticky at 5%, but headline inflation, thanks to food prices coming down and oil prices coming down, was down below the 5% mark for the first time in years. What we are seeing in the interest rate markets is U.S. mortgage rates declined as well on a potential Federal Reserve Fed pause. U.S. federal budget has been back in balance. It's positive, while yields in Japan's 30-year did come down. Unfortunately, interest rates in the UK, US, and in the UK, the US, Germany, and also Japanese banks have all started to rise. That's not good for us who are trying to recapitalize our debt at the moment. However, Canadian building permits are on the rise. The Italian production drops to the second month in a row, while Chinese PPIs, which control the copper prices, they came down as well for the 5th straight month. We're seeing negative in the Chinese manufacturing sector. So let's get into our deep dive. Yesterday, we did see that ZCCM is facing a little bit of internal turmoil as they've been delisted not delisted, but suspended. I know I'm using tough words there, suspended, not delisting, from the London Securities Exchange. There was a change at the top. Banker Historica Banda had officially resigned, and she was replaced by a finance and mining expert who is Kekenwe. Let me just get this correct, people. I know that I'm my people. By the way, people blast my name a lot, so I'm okay with this fact. Kekenenwa Muyangwa, who's the new board chair. And ZCM is simultaneously facing a suspension in trading from the London Securities Exchange, the London Stock Exchange, due to non-compliance with audited financials. Now, they are saying that this is mainly because of the delay in their Mopani valuation. So who is the new ZCCM ZCCM board chair, Mr. Muyangwa. He's got 35 years experience in finance and mining, with special experience in international mining and metals. He's dealt with concentrates. Got a bachelor in mining and engineering from Imperial College and of Technology in London. Plus, he's a chartered certified accountant and a PwC alumni. We also have seen that he's a long-term consultant in corporate turnarounds of distressed assets and other projects for Africa, so across Africa, for the African Development Bank. So I think this is a change of the guard, mainly based, Vernon, on the fact that there does seem to have a need now to be somebody who can handle the distressed position, and also the fact that ZCCM is probably going to start engaging in a lot more royalty transactions going forward. Because they're trying to streamline their position and generate a lot more revenue as a company, and trying to make sure that they have a lot more cash flowing through their system. So remember, they've just done that deal with Kansanshi, where they've switched from being a dividend earner to a royalty earner. They are still a 20% shareholder. I repeat this, they are still a 20% shareholder. Their 20% of shares are just compensated through sales and not profits. That's it. Okay. They still have voting rights. They haven't relinquished their voting rights. They have an extra board seat even. Everything is still there. I don't know what doom and gloom people are trying to sell. Everything is still there. They're just getting compensated differently. That's all. Okay. Because sales, Vernon, no matter what company you run, sales are always bigger than profits. That's the reality. So 3% of sales is likely to give you more than 20% of profits. That's generally how this business is probably going to operate, because mining is a capital intensive business. And then if you're not talking about profits, you're talking about dividends declared, because mining companies rarely declare their full profits as dividends. Rarely do they do that. Okay. But anyway, that's one of the things right there. Now, part of the other news that we've seen as well is the IMF has warned that they're going to be less loans to African nations surrounding global economic environment, and loans from China as well and other advanced countries to Africa have been on the decline due to the global economy experiencing new shocks and contractions. IMF representative of Nigeria, Ari Asien, said that with the funding squeeze, it would be critical for Nigeria and other African countries to rely on internally generated funds. Something, Vernon, I think we've been talking about generally. So instead of, if you want to earn dollars, trade, don't borrow. The best thing you can do is do as much export as you can so that you can earn the dollars to repay the debt and get yourself back in a domestically financed position. And then use your domestic revenue to operate. Use your tax money to operate. Okay, that would strengthen you as an economy. And I think, Vernon, that's a message that would resonate with you, as we've been pointing out. On the other side of the globe, China has vowed a strong reaction to any U.S. sanctions. News yesterday came out that Italy wants to leave the pact, the Belt and Road Pact, and they're actually going after sanctions for China, and also the EU is now talking about it. China said it would react strictly and strongly to any sanctions imposed on its companies by European Union for supplying Russian oil with so-called dual-use goods that can be used for both military and civilian purposes. Now, Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang said China does not deliver weapons of any crisis weapons to any crisis nation or any crisis regions. China warned to defend itself with legitimate and legal interests. Why is this important? Well, we just asked the French president and his team to go and resolve with the Chinese creditors our debt situation. Now they're busy fighting each other. What do you think is going to play out when they're sitting across the table discussing Zambian debt? Okay, beef is going to come out. That's what's going to happen. So we're that child in between divorcing parents, trying to figure out how where Zambia financially is a child of global divorce, because EU and America and China all used to be one long supply chain. Now they're busy battling each other, fighting each other, and we have borrowed money from both of them. And we are children of divorce right now. We're trying to figure out how to balance this situation. So that, I think, is the difficulty that we're seeing. President Biden does a 180, siding with the GOP, the Republicans of the House, on faster energy permits. Now, this also affects oil prices, because if President Biden starts pushing for bills to help get faster permits out, then that means American supply can increase. So the White House on Wednesday called for Congress to pass permitting legislation that would speed up clean energy and fossil fuel projects to end the debt ceiling deadlock. Republicans have made permitting a reform a priority. This is now opposed by the Progressives, the current party that put President Biden in power. And as he's trying to campaign, this may be a sticky one for him, but he's trying to avert the U.S. going into default. By the way, people, if the U.S. goes into default, the whole financial system goes into default, and whoop-de-doo, gold prices will go through the roof, but they will be trouble. So one of the things that's keeping gold up is the fact that the U.S. debt ceiling debate is still going on. Finally, Vernon, let me get to our chart of the day. Conversations are being had about how Africa can operate well. But this was a quick chart that came many years ago about the resource-rich nations. The ones in green are what we call mineral-rich. The ones in blue are the ones that are called fuel-rich. Okay? And the ones that are in light are neither fuel nor are they mineral-rich. As you can see, Zambia, DRC, we are mineral-rich. That's where we are. Botswana has also got diamonds, everything. So it's a battle. Which one, the the resource-rich nations versus the non-mineral-rich nations. Now let's take a look at how this affected economic growth. Now this comes from a report by the World Bank called "The Future of African Resources," Chapter 1, where they saw that there was a decline in GDP per capita from the resource-rich nations when the mineral boom stopped. So when the global resource boom cycle stopped, in other words, when copper prices stopped being in the top tiers, you saw that economic growth per capita slowed down, for example, in Zambia. Once copper prices stalled, we faced it. But you could see that our economic growth was really strong. But if you take a look at non-resource rich Africa, look at them in that yellow bar, post-boom GDP per capita growth. If you're looking very carefully, theirs actually grew, okay? Theirs actually grew. Their economy sustained growth before the resource boom, which was 2004, 2014. By the way, 2004, 2014 was the time that China was doing a lot of construction of cities and modernization of its areas. So what happened was they started to gather a lot of resources to build out cities. I think in the last 30 years, people, China has built 600 cities. Let me put that into your mind, Vernon. 600 cities, okay? In the last 30 years, they've built that many cities. About 30, 40 years, yeah, they built 600 cities. We can't build one, by the way. We're still dealing with 1950s pre-independence infrastructure is what we're operating with still as a country. They've built brand new cities with brand new infrastructure, like brand new things. And it's simply because they were extracting, and that's what created the boom in resources. Now, it made sub-Saharan African nations with resource-rich, that first column there, their GDP per capita was growing faster than non-resource-rich nations. But it appears we stopped being able to sustain it when China stopped buying minerals. And as you can see, the non-resource-rich nations sustained their economic growth because theirs was based on development. Now, who are the non-resource-rich nations? Your South Africas, your Namibias, Zimbabwe. You're looking at Malawi, the majority of East Africa in the Horn there, the Horn of East Africa area there, be it Kenya, these are the areas. The resource-rich nations, they got a thumping. And that is what we're looking at. I know we've pretty much done a lively sprint through the data today, people, but that's what we like when we're on catch-up mode. Today's conversation, Vernon, our topic of discussion, we're going to be talking about solving a problem, solving business problems. But before we get into that, Vernon, I don't know if there's anything that tickled your fancy before we get into today's conversation.
Yeah, I think something I would like just to share with our listeners and our viewers is I feel like we're not hungry enough to get whatever we want in life. Let me put it generally, whatever we want in life. Of course, I understand everyone is trying to be comfortable, live a better life, but I think our focus is in a different place. You know, I was reading and just listening to some of the interesting words of Warren Buffett, and just how they transitioned and found his way, to who of course he was, being rich and being stable. And some of the interesting scenarios and encounters he had, where he proposes a business idea that is asking someone to invest money into, and this guy literally says, well, that sounds absolutely impossible. How do I invest in a business where people will be downloading books online and, like literally digitizing a library? You have a ton of books, yes, and people can come get them physically to you or from you. But how is it that you want to digitize everything? Digitize a whole library, and people be able to buy that. And he was mentioning numbers of $1 billion at the time, and that seemed very unrealistic. But then what he had going on was he had his own vision and believed in something that was going to solve a problem. I remember earlier you mentioned something about learning to solve a problem, within your capacity, and not expecting government this to come and do and solve a problem for other people. When you've seen a problem and identified it, and you feel there's got to be change somewhere, why don't you take the change there? So he felt, if I can do this, it's not only going to make me financially, wealthy, but rather it will also end a particular problem. But people never saw that, and they were comfortable with the way things were at the time. So really, it's that hunger to get whatever you want that is actually really going to be very helpful. And I feel if we channel the right energy, the right conversations, you surround yourself with the right people. And this is actually something that a lot of wealthy people today actually do advise. If you're trying to get yourself to a better place and higher place, you surround yourself with those people that are actually going to add more to where you want to go. But remember, you must have a plan and a goal if you're going to achieve those things. But I think we are hungry for the wrong things. We are hungry to be comfortable. We're hungry to live a big life, and our focus from then derails to becoming financially free, be our own bosses. You want to be your own boss if you're getting more money, but you wouldn't have built a standard or a foundation of what is going to be giving you more money for you to be self-employed, maybe, and be your own boss and things of that nature. And of late, I have been really having thoughts of how people were able to make it to the top. For me, it's the hunger, the drive, the propulsion of getting yourself to that place. And I feel if people are able to navigate what is really killing them, and not what the world or what they feel, it's what do you call it? Finding something that works for you, something that you're passionate about. I've seen people getting into businesses because they heard that the business might be lucrative. They go and study a profession that they hear is going to be paying. That's what they go for. At the end of the day, without passion, they will soon but deplete, actually, be fleeting soon, because they have no passion about it. But imagine someone who has passion into that particular field they're into. I think it'll be easy for them to really find their niche, build, improve it, and be rich from it. I think, make as much money from it, because then there's a whole lot attached apart from just, you having the experience or having the knowledge about it. Something very interesting you also mentioned, I think yesterday, was about, experience that actually is supposed to pay you. And if you do have that experience and you have this passion about something that you're building towards, it's easy for you to make way and, be able to grow yourself financially. I feel right now in the country, people are talking about mining, because mining seemingly has, people earn a lot of money from mining. But I would not encourage someone to go into mining because there's a lot of money.
The majority of people who blab about mining don't know how to mine. Okay? This is where my problem comes with us as a group. We talk a lot about things we don't know, we don't even know how to do. Because you're saying, no, as a country, you must own our own. Do you know how to mine yourself? Do you know? Okay. If a mine was given to you, what state would we find it in 10 years later? Probably finished. All right. Perhaps what you should be focusing on is learning how to do it so that you can go and run one. Okay. Instead of us talking about what the government must be doing with mines, how about if you feel so strongly about it, go and learn how to do it? That's what we should all start doing as people. That's why I said the first step to running a business, people, is learning how to mind your own. Put your mind on your business. What matters to you? What is the thing that is truly important to you? And go and deal with that. But if you make every problem your problem, it is not going to work. Pick your fights wisely. Pick the things that you are going to find important wisely. Okay, because you're going to squander your time not doing anything, and then you're going to get angry that the system is not working. So quickly, Vernon, just to get into it before the break, what I wanted to introduce to everybody is a simple model on problem solving, and I'm going to explain it afterwards. But this is what I call the problem diagnostics process. This is a merger of the healthcare's diagnostics process. What does it take for a medical practitioner to diagnose something? Then I'm going to take you through how you go through a problem. So there's two models that I want to take us through on the other side of it. So for all of you are entrepreneurs and you're looking to get your idea, if you have discovered a problem, okay, you need to dive into that problem and go into understanding it, because the thing you need to understand is everyone says KYC, know your client. Actually, I would say KYP. Okay, or at best KYCP, know your client's problem. That's what you need to understand, because that's what's going to make them pay money. You go to a doctor, Vernon, and you pay money because you're sick, not because you missed the doctor and you wanted to see their face. Okay, you go there because you're sick. You go to the shops because you're out of supplies, not because you like the smell of the shop or something. No, you go there because you need to acquire supplies or you need to acquire things. There is a need that takes you to commercial activity. So the question you need to start looking at is, what is the need that people have? This is why in church you are trained to listen to your friends' needs. You are trained to do this stuff because of that. So on the other side, we're going to talk about going through this model and then going through the other problem solution model and breaking down this thing of solving problems, taking personal responsibility for problems. We'll be back on the other side with it.
And returning to the last session. Hi.
Simple question, Vernon. Do you want to be wealthy one day? Or would you like to live your life in wealth? Or which one would you like? Wealth, obscurity, poverty. Which one would you like?
Ironically, I was having this conversation this morning around 3 with a colleague, and
I said simple
he was
answer,
asking me.
not a sermon. I said simple answer. don't be a politician here.
He asked me the same question. He says, "What are you up to? What do you want?" And I told him, "I want to be wealthy. I want to be comfortable." And I said yes to it.
There's a difference between being wealthy and being comfortable. Okay, being comfortable is just being comfortable. Okay, you can be comfortable in the 9,000 kwacha salary. Wealthy is way beyond that. Okay, you can. Comfortable is designed by whatever you can spend. Comfortable is just living within budget. That's comfortable and having enough to save. Comfortable, Vernon. In fact, let me explain what comfort. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me.
We can, just cannot see you.
Yeah, I seem to have just disappeared for a moment, but I'll be back. People, don't worry. But comfort, Vernon, is just literally a person's ability to. All comfort is your personal ability to live within a budget. Okay, comfortable financially, by the way, is just running a surplus budget with savings, having 20 to 50,000 kwacha in your bank account in cash savings, and that's about it. You're comfortable. Now your comfort can be disrupted. It can be short-lived. Okay, that's all that it means. It's not sustainable, because if we just have one, if your job gets lost, inflation happens, all those things, you're wiped out. But comfort can be obtained quite easily, actually. Now there's secure. There's a difference between comfortable, secure, self-reliant, and self-determined. That's why I call them there. That's why I call them stable, secure, self-reliant, self-determined. Those are the levels of wealth that you need to start looking at. Okay, financial stability, financial self-reliance, financial stability, security, self-reliance, and self-determination. Now, the reason I say this, Vernon, is everybody wants to be wealthy. In fact, in the comment section, I'll ask anyone: do you want to live your life in wealth? Okay, would you prefer wealth to obscurity or poverty? I'm sure you're going to get one altruist who wants to just put their finger up and say, no, I don't want wealth. I don't want money, because you don't have it. Okay, that's the majority of people. The people who don't have it. Sorry, people. I shouldn't have said that to you. I know I was just being mean there. But majority of people, you ask them this question, Vernon, in reality, without trying to pose for people, they want to be wealthy. Okay, and the reason is the reality of that situation is you can only run a system where people become wealthy by their own means. So this is why I tell you this. Why am I a capitalist? Because I'm pragmatic. I don't live in fantasy land. I don't live in a world where I believe that just by voting someone in, and because they campaigned and they promised to me, kneeling on the ground with their hands up, that they're going to adhere to the things they promised me. I don't live in a fantasy world. I know that human beings lie. I know that governments are corrupt. I understand the realities of humanity. And I'm not in this belief that a single day of voting is going to change the moral fiber of a system that has been corrupt for decades, Vernon. Okay? That is a decades-long corrupt system with systemic issues, okay, entrenched in its soul, right? So there's no need to start now believing that they're all of a sudden going to change, right? So the reason I believe in capitalism is to minimize the powers of the state and to maximize the responsibilities of the people. That's it, okay? Is that when it comes to the economic future, all I ask from the state is make sure emergency, in the times of it, you protect our borders from military attack. You protect us from natural disasters, help us recover from natural disasters, look over the systems and make sure that they're running properly. That's it. Not to interfere in them, just make sure that the rule stand by, because an educated population is good for everyone, Vernon. It's not just good for you as an individual, it's good for everyone. Those are the things I will hold the state to. But at an individual level, when it comes to your ability to feed yourself, take your kids to school, those things, when it comes to your health, that's on you, okay? And that's why I'm going to stand here and tell you that at the end of the day, it's your choice to run by either investing or running businesses to be able to improve your lives. I don't know, Vernon, if you can still hear me. I've frozen on my side.
Yeah, we can get you loud and clear. Just visual on my end. You're stuck there, but I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, unfortunately, welcome to the world of internet in our country. It does get frozen a lot. Now, on the other side of it, Vernon, one of the things I would pay attention to here is, as I was saying, this is the problem diagnostics model. So, one of the reasons I say is that learn how to solve a problem. Because listen, look at that part at the bottom. It says a business is a problem solved by a product created with a process. So, you have to focus on three things. If you want to be an entrepreneur, focus on three things: a problem, a product, and a process. Okay. So first thing you have to find is you have to find a problem, and then you have to build a product around it, and then you have to build a process to deliver that product, efficiently. So let's look at what it means at each of these stages. There are 9 stages to this problem discovery, trying to get to how to remedy something. So let's take a look at this problem diagnostics process. And this, like I said, this is what a medical practitioner effectively does. So let's go through it as well. Now, 1, define the affected party. You know, when you walk into a doctor's room, the doctor's going to ask you, what's your name? How old are you? All sorts of basic information. So they look at the affected party. Now, the question you have to ask is it businesses? Is it clients? What geography are they in? How old are they? What are their demographics? What is the size of the group? These are the questions you need to answer. The second thing you need to now ask is, what is their complaint? Is there a pain, a disturbance to their normal existence that's hurting them, or something threatening their day-to-day existence? Or is there something they're lacking that's affecting that's making them dissatisfied with their life? Is there a lack? So what is their complaint? Is there something hurting them or something that they're not having? So one of those 2. Then detect what the need is. Go through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What is this? Is this an emotional need? Is it a social need? Is it a security need? Is it a physiological need? What kind of need is this? Okay, what complaint are they having? What area is it going through? Then now analyze the problem. Where does the problem start? What was the starting and where did it start? What is the current state of their problem? Okay. Was it sudden? Was it instant? Was it gradual? Is it new? Is it associated with other symptoms? Does it have a historic pattern? What helps? What hurts? This is what you need to understand about a consumer's problem. Whether it's somebody, Vernon, who says booking a taxi was a problem. Okay, somebody would say we had a problem with booking taxis. They were too expensive. So let's analyze it. Where did it start? Is this something that's been building gradually? Has it been gradually getting worse? Are taxi drivers charging more and more and more? I'm taking through the mind of a person who creates a taxi app. Okay, so they're thinking, as the taxi drivers' prices, is this a new problem, or is this something that's been in society for a long time? Have they gotten used to it, or has it entrenched itself? Okay, because something that's entrenched, Vernon, something that you've been having for a long time, is actually difficult to get rid of and change. In fact, you even find yourself normalizing it. Is it associated with other things? What is driving the taxi driver to push up their prices? Okay, what is it associated with? Is it associated? What's the historic pattern of taxi prices? And what helps drive the prices down? What hurts? Does technology help? Does it not? Does it hurt the situation? Does it make it even worse? For example, I remember being outside of the Global Citizens concert, and we were trying to book taxi apps, and these guys drove up the price by making supply deficient. They do this. In fact, you're seeing it with the taxi apps here in Zambia. Sometimes they don't pick up so that they can drive the prices up. They're like, if you take a short trip, they won't take you, okay, in some of these areas. So analyze the problem. Then give a basic description of the problem. What's the technical name? What is the purpose of this problem? What's the history of the problem to the affected parties? Write it down, okay? Now, how does this problem work? What is the root cause? What is the symptom? Where did it come from? And how does it transition from the root cause to the symptom? Okay? What is the journey from root cause to symptom? Analyze that problem, get to know it very well. Then ask yourself the question, what is the cost of the problem to the consumer if it's not solved? Or what is the risk of future cost if it's left unaddressed? Okay? So what's the problem if not solved? What's the problem if left unaddressed? Then ask yourself, is this worth addressing? How big is the market for it? Is it growing? Is it an untapped market? Is it predictable? Is it profitable? Are there many competitors that are intense in that area? Does it have opportunities to go beyond where I'm starting from? Then you can look at treatment options, okay? You can treat a problem, Vernon, in 4 ways. You can relieve the pain, you can neutralize it, you can cure it, or you can prevent it, okay? Now, relieving pain is whenever I'm exhibiting symptoms, Vernon, you treat the symptoms. to neutralize it, that point from where it goes from root cause to symptoms, you can neutralize that transmission line. If you're looking at the cure, you can remove the actual thing that's causing these things, the root cause, or you can block the entry point all in all, and therefore compare each of these solutions by price, quality, speed, and convenience, or is it bigger, better, faster, stronger than any others? So this is what you want to look at when you're diagnosing a consumer problem. What's the name? Dumi Sangube actually talks about this as he's currently walking from Solwezi to Lusaka for entrepreneurship. In chapter 7 of his book, he talks about the 4 radical steps to building a business. And radical step number 1 was know the game, where he says, know the inside out of it, know what the problems are, who's having the problems, how much are they spending? Because he was talking about PVC card printing. So he went through, he understood that there was a problem with the current cards that people have, where they would take a laminate, where they would put a picture in laminated paper and go and get it laminated. It would peel, it would break. He was actually talking about how colleges were struggling with the PVC card print, with the printing card business. So then he instituted PVC printing. Okay, he started now looking at how to sell that. He knew all the dynamics. He knew the competitors. He knew the landscape. He knew the problems. He knew the costs. He knew the machinery required. He knew the science behind it. He knew where to get the equipment. He knew inside out where these things were happening, because he said your knowledge is what often will determine how much less capital you need to acquire. So that is the thing I just wanted to share with you. I'll go through the rest of this tomorrow when we're talking about the problem solution fit matrix. But in reality, for the essence of time and just for rounding things up, if everybody focused on solving a problem, or if as many of us focused on solving problems, a lot more business, instead of wailing about them or instead of trying to vote them away, if we took personal responsibility. I'm just listening to Rick Warren has released a new book, Vernon, called Created to Dream. And he talks about how God's dream can come upon you. It's actually good for entrepreneurial visions. And he says how people get visions are in 4 stages. You become curious about something. You become so curious, you ask questions. And then when you hear how bad it is, you become concerned about that problem. When you become so concerned, you become so convicted about how painful this thing is that you take ownership over it. And once you've become convicted, you feel called or compelled to solve it. Okay, so your curiosity converts into concern, which converts into conviction, which converts into a compelling or a calling to go and solve a problem. And right then and there, Vernon, you're most likely to get a vision about an industry. If you go through those 4 phases, they use the story of Nehemiah to do it. But that is for everybody to see. Then go and solve the problem. If it affects you emotionally, Vernon, go and solve the problem. If all of us did this and built engines of capitalism called businesses around solving problems, most of our issues would not be there. And that's where I'll leave it.
We'll meet tomorrow again. Thank you so much.
Okay.